Last class we have seen before suit, after suit, before test, after test. So this session we'll see it did before groups, after groups, before class, after class, before method, after method, and data provider annotation, parameters. So these are all annotations we'll see one by one. So before groups means, suppose you have categorized your test cases. You want to run those groups test cases before some code, then we'll use this before groups. The list of groups that this configuration method will run before. This method is guaranteed to run shortly before the first test method that belongs to the any of these groups is invoked. Any group invocation before, first this before groups code will execute. Then after groups, the list of groups that this configuration method will run after. So after it will run, after all your test cases are groups related test cases are over, then after groups code will execute. So this is the syntax at the rate after groups, public void method name. You can change the method name, curly braces, code you write, what code you want to write after all the groups. Next, before class, this annotated method will be run before the first test method in the current class is invoked. This is the class level, particular class level, and any test method execution before this before class code will execute. At the rate before class, public void before class, score curly braces, a precondition code for your test case, and you can close that. And after class is, so this annotated method will be run after all the test cases in the current class have been run. So this is just a current class level. So particular class inside, so test method before and test method after, these two annotations will execute. And before method, the annotated method will be run before each test method. In JUnit we have added before each, right? Same this before method also. So each test method before some code you want to execute, then you can take up this before method. So at the rate before method, public void setup and precondition code for every test code. So that means some code you want to execute for every test method execution before. That's a common code for each test method. That's a mandatory code. Instead of writing the lines of code for all the test method inside, the common code you can place inside this before method. First this before method will execute, then it will go to each test method. Then after method. So this annotated method will be run after each test method. Test method execution after, cursor automatically will come inside this after method annotated block, and this is the before method and after method. And most important interview question is before test to before method. These two are widely asked questions in the interview. And data provider. So at the rate data provider, what is the purpose of data provider? So data provider is mainly used for supplying a data for a test method. So you have data in the Excel sheet, and from there you want to supply data to your test method. Then we can use this data provider annotation. So this annotated method must return an object two-dimensional array where each object can be assigned the parameter list of the test method. So each object can be assigned the parameter list of the test method. How many parameters you declare, that parameter values you can pass in this data provider annotation. You can store the data in the data provider annotation. So all the values you can store. So then the @test method wants to receive data from this data provider, needs to use a data provider keyword, and that name you have to use, and in the @test annotation. So let me show you that the example. So at the rate data provider, so name equal to name of the data provider. You can give the name for this annotation, or if you are not giving a name, this part is not there, only annotation, then public. See, data provider always returns an object two-dimensional array, return type method. So this method is a return type method. Method name, parenthesis, curly braces start and curly braces ends. But here you can see object two-dimensional array you have to create. Object two-dimensional array data equal to new object rows and columns. Rows and columns. And rows tells you number of times test has to be executed. This rows tells you number of times you want to repeat your test case. Columns will tell you number of parameters in the test method. Your test method, how many parameters are there? That parameter count is your columns count. And object two-dimensional array. Object two-dimensional array data equal to new object 3 rows and 2 columns. That means I'm basically passing a username password for this annotation. For this annotation method inside, I'm passing usernames, multiple usernames. I'm passing 3 sets of usernames and 2 parameters. One is username, one parameter. Password is another parameter. That's a column count. So first row data 0 0. So username, data 0 1 password, and data 1 0. So username 2. Data 1 1. So password 2. And same way third row data third row first column username 3. Third row second column password 3, and return this entire data. So this is going to return. So return the two-dimensional object. And now you need to pass this data to a test method. How can you pass? This is the one at the rate test data provider keyword equal to data provider name or data provider method name. You need to tell. So this test method has to fetch the data from which data provider. So that data provider name, either this name, or if you're not giving a name, just method name. Just a method name can pass. So public void login test, string uname, string password, string uname and string password. So username, and you can, so this is the parameters I was talking. The count of parameters is your columns count. So number of parameters in the test method. This is the test method. So how many parameters are there? This count is this columns count. Right? So that's how you can supply data and how you will do data driven testing. So what we are doing in the data provider annotation, you are storing the data. How many sets of data you want to store there, store it. Then map the with the test method. How you can map at the test annotation bracket data provider keyword you have to use, and then map the data provider name or data provider method name, and public void, so the method name and string username, string password. So what will happen? First time this username will store here and this password will store here. So wherever you are using username, password, parameters in this method, test method, the values will replace. Next iteration, username 2 will store in this username, password 2 will store in the password. So then you can replace the second values. Same way third values, 3 times this test method will execute. So this is how to do a data driven testing with data provider annotation. Okay, so that's the how to do data driven testing with data provider annotation. Next, parameters. So parameters is describes how to pass parameters to a test method from XML file. XML file means what one? Suite file. testng.xml or suite file. From suite file, you can pass the data. So this is another way to pass data from XML file. You don't need to hard code in your test cases. You can store somewhere, and from there you can read through this parameters annotation. So we need to declare parameter tag in XML file, and name and value attributes you have to use in the parameter tag inside. So tag contains attributes, right? That's what we learned in the object identification process. So parameter tag you can use. So in the XML file, XML concept, you can create your own tags, but HTML is not like that. HTML is a fixed tags. XML is we can create our own tags. So like this, we need a parameter tag. So that's why you can create a parameter tag after test tag or wherever you want these values, and parameter tag inside name attribute, name of the parameter, and value of that parameter you pass, where the name attribute of the tag defines name of the parameter and the value attribute defines value of the parameter. Okay, so this is the parameters tags how we need to supply. Let's see here. So parameter names are declared inside the class and above the method. So this is the one, public class parameter demo @parameters @test. So which parameters? First you have to declare the parameter names with the parameters annotation. So parameter 1, parameter 2, and then in the parenthesis also same parameter name will come. String parameter 1 comma string parameter 2. Same parameters whatever you declared with the @parameters annotation, that parameters should come in the parenthesis of the test method or any other annotated method. Now, so then parameter 1 I can pass directly here. Parameter name I'm passing here. So these values will come from XML file. You are not going to hard code here. So you will give there itself. So that's what we are going to do here, parameters annotation. So let's see how to create an XML file. How to create an XML file? Right click on the TestNG class. Then select the TestNG option and convert to TestNG. So there is option in the TestNG. One is create TestNG class and convert to TestNG. Two options will be there. And one option is convert to TestNG to create a testng.xml file and give the suite name, test name, and XML file location and click on finish. Automatically your XML suite file will be created. And then once it is created a suite file, you have to add the test tag after. So this is the suite tag, right? Suite tag name, suite name parallel equal to none. Test tag name equal to test name, and parameter tag name parameter 1. What is the value of the parameter 1? Suppose email value. So parameter name is email and value is so ramesh3@gmail.com. Parameter 2 is a password, maybe password parameter name, and value of the parameter is you give the value of the password. So these parameters whatever you are writing here must be declared here in your test method. Email, password you have to declare here, then only you can call them here. Same name you have to give. So whatever the test method parameter, that parameter name exactly you have to give here, otherwise it doesn't work out. Then classes, class name package dot class name and class name package dot class name 2. That means these values you are giving to these classes. Say test tag after parameter tags, then classes tag will start, then mention one by one class for which classes you want to give this, then close the classes tag, close the test tag, close the so this is the how you can so take up this parameter values from XML file. So any questions? So that's the how to supply data from XML file. At the test annotation next. So you can mark your method or a class as a test case. Entire class also you can mark it as a test by writing @test. That entire class will treat as a test case. If you write @test on the method above, that will be treated as a @test case. The test case. You can create n number of @test methods, but all above annotations you cannot create multiple times. Now we need to see @test keywords or parameters. So first keyword is already we use a data provider keyword. @test along what keywords you can use, that I'm explaining today. @test after first keyword data provider keyword. We have seen why you will use this data provider keyword. The name of the data provider for this test method. So what is the name of the data provider you want to write? How will you write? Key value pair you have to write. So this keyword is used, this data provider keyword is used to map between data provider and @test method. Data provider and @test method. So @test bracket data provider equal to data provider name or data provider method name. So this is how you will use this data provider keyword. Next one, depends on groups. So the list of groups, this method depends on, this test method depends on which groups. So that group name you can mention. So @test depends on groups, group name. Suppose smoke or regression or functional test cases. This test method depends on this group. First, this group test cases will execute, then it will come to this test method. If this group any test case fails, then this will skip automatically. It won't execute. That's a depends on advantage. So if particular test method depends on some group, then you can use this grouping concept and do that. Then you can make a depends on groups. These are all the parameters that you can use with the @test annotation. Next, this is the very important. Depends on methods. The list of methods this annotated method will depend on. Suppose @test depends on methods, method 1, comma method 2, or you can write a single method also. D method depends on method 1 and method 2. First, what will happen? First method 1 will execute, then method 2 will execute. If both are passed, then it will come to D method. That's a depends on method message that you are telling clearly. Okay, this D method depends on method 1 and method 2, or only method 1 also you can. Once that is successful and it is working, then D method will start. Otherwise it won't execute. And what will happen? And this method 1 suppose failed, this D method will skip automatically. It won't execute. That's a depends on methods, very powerful keyword. You want to set a dependency among test methods. One method depends on other method. How you can set the dependency? Using depends on method. What you need to write? @test bracket depends on methods equal to the method name in the curly braces, double quotes inside. Test method name. Another test method name, you write it here. Next, always run. If set to true, that this test method will always going to be run. Even depends on method fails also. If you write always run equal to true, and this method will execute. If you don't set the always run equal to true, if this fails, and this won't execute. But if you set always run equal to true in @test annotation bracket inside, always run equal to true if I am setting means. So it doesn't consider this depends on method whether pass or fail, and this T1 method will execute automatically. That's always run equal to true advantage. So you don't want to skip this T1 method. Even this T method fails also. If T method fails, generally it won't execute, right? But if you write always run equal to true, first priority given to this. That means execute always, irrespective of this T method pass or fail status. So that is this always run equal to true advantage. Description, you can provide the small short description for the method. So that will show in the logs. So at the rate test description equal to write small description. So that's the description keyword. Next, enabled. So enabled is used to skip your test cases currently. So you can mark the class or method as skipped with this keyword. At the rate test enabled equal to false. If you write, this test method will skip automatically. So these are the questions. A lot of questions will come. How can you skip the test cases? What is the answer you have to give? At the rate test bracket enabled equal to false. You have to. So how can you set a dependency? So at the rate test bracket depends on methods equal to the curly braces method name. And how can you set the data for the test method? So this is the keyword. At the rate test bracket data provider equal to the data provider name or method name. So these are the questions, interview questions. Again, people, I don't know why they won't refer these videos. Again, they will ask interview questions. So I'm giving here topic wise, or while listening the video, you note down those interview questions so that it won't be a problem. Okay, expected exceptions. The list of exceptions that a test method is expected to throw. You're expecting some exceptions like no such element exception, Webdriver exception, stale element reference exception, and timeout exception. And this kind of exceptions you are expecting, and that exceptions you can mention here. Then if that exceptions occurs, then test case won't fail. Other than that, any other exception occurs, this test case will fail. That's a you can mention which exceptions occurs. You cannot make the test case fail. So expected exceptions equal to exception class name 1, exception class name 2 you can write. So another one, groups. What is a groups? The list of groups this class or method belongs to. So you can categorize the test cases into different groups like smoke group, sanity group, and this test case belongs to which group? That group you can mention. So that's the advantage with this groups keyword. So how can you categorize your test cases? How can you group the test cases? Means this is how you can give the answer. At the rate test groups equal to, in the curly braces you can mention the group name. So which group you are categorizing? If you are not categorizing, all will be treated as a one category. So that's not the way, right? We want to categorize smoke test cases few, functional test cases, then regression test cases. So you need to categorize them. And tomorrow your manager will ask, run only smoke test cases. If you categorize only, you can run only smoke. If you are not categorized, you cannot run them, right? So that's the reason we need to do a categorization of test cases. So at the rate test groups equal to curly braces inside the group name you give. Generally, in the testing point of view, you have a smoke, sanity, functional test cases, regression test case. These are the things we can see generally categorization cases. And at the rate test groups equal to smoke, comma, another keyword if you want to use comma you put, then priority equal to 1, comma, description. You can give a description also. Public void m1 method. So we can create multiple groups as well. You can create multiple groups as well. At the rate test groups equal to group 1 and group 2. So public void method name parenthesis curly braces start and end. So we can include and exclude groups through testng.xml file. You can include and exclude groups through testng.xml file. So how can you include and exclude the groups? Include tag is, so you are including. Exclude tag you are telling, exclude that, don't run that. That's a include and exclude. So this include and exclude tag you can use for the groups and for the methods also. And particular class, which methods you want to include, which methods you don't want to run. You can tell with the exclude tag. but all in the XML file, suit file you need to mention. So testng.xml suit file, that we need to mention. After grouping in Selenium, we can specify the include and exclude tags in testng.xml. While creating a testng.xml, you can include and exclude tags you can write. Include tag tells testng.xml that which group we need to execute. Exclude tag tells testng.xml which group we have to skip. Which group we have to skip that. That's a include and exclude tags. And this is the how we are going to use. Let me show you. First, you create an XML suite file. How to create an XML suite file? Right click on the classes, TestNG classes, and TestNG option you choose, convert to TestNG. Then give the suite name. There is an option to give a suite name. So this is the suite tag. Then name attribute, name value. Parallel, you can select a parallel, none or whatever it is. Add test tag, name equal to test groups. And then once you create an XML file, these options you won't get. We need to write them, like groups and run tag, include tag, name equal to smoke, exclude tag, name equal to regression. This is how you can categorize and you can call them. Now, what is meant by here? Include name means I am running only smoke test cases in my these two test cases. These two classes, how many test methods are categorized to smoke? Only those test cases will exist. And exclude means, okay, in these classes, any regression group is there. Those doesn't pick for the execution. That's the meaning of exclude. And only these classes, whatever the classes you mention below the classes tag, only those classes it will consider which group you want to run, which group you don't want to execute. So test tag and suit tag, right? So this is the include and exclude tags. So I created a new tag called group here, group tag, groups tag. See that groups tag, start tag, run start tag, run close tag, groups close tag. Inside group, we have mentioned include and exclude tag, include and exclude tag. So we have mentioned group name, which we have to include and exclude, right? Which we have to include and exclude. And that's the this include and exclude tags how to use with the groups. And same thing, you can run all the test cases which belongs to smoke group, so that I mentioned already here, right? All the smoke group related test cases will execute from these two classes. Next keyword, groups is over. Any questions on the groups? Next one is invocation count. The number of times this method should be invoked. You want to execute this test method, how many times you want to execute? So that can be done here. So invocation count, the number of times this method should be invoked. The number of times this method should be invoked. @test invocation count equal to 3. Invocation count equal to 3 you can use. And so this what will happen now? This test method executes 3 times. Invocation count tells invoke this test method 3 times, one after the other. Okay. So then success percentage. So these are all not that much important. The important one is invocation count to groups and priority timeout. Timeout. The maximum number of milliseconds this test should take. So if you're taking more than the specified amount here, then test case will fail. So make sure, and you want this also, because so this many seconds after it should go to next test method. So that purpose you will use timeout. You're telling, okay, so after 3000 milliseconds after, and you make it a timeout. That's a timeout option. Thread pool size. The size of the thread pool for this method. The method will be invoked from multiple threads as specified by invocation count. So thread pool size is that. So you can mention, so how many times? So the threads has to be invoked by the invocation count method. That's a thread pool size you can mention. And priority is the very important. lot of questions on this keyword. So the priority for the test method, you can order your test methods. You have multiple @test methods in the one class. Which one you want to execute first? That order you can set with this priority keyword. So @test priority equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Even you can give negative values also here. -1, -2. First, negative values will be prioritized first. Lowest number will be scheduled first for execution. -1 means less than 1, right? That's why first that will exist. So that means you can give a negative values, you can give a positive values for the priority. And can we give floating values? No. Floating values it doesn't accept. Can we give string values? No, you cannot give string values. So priority always a number, can be positive or negative number. Okay, so that's the priority keyword questions. So you will see a lot of questions in the priority. Next, okay, how can you specify particular class methods using include and exclude tags? Okay, in the class you have multiple @test methods. So which one you want to execute, which one you don't want to execute? You can control with include and exclude tags. How we control the groups, right? Same way your methods also you can control with include and exclude tags. So this is the suit tag, test tag. This is the order. If they ask you format of testng.xml, so you need to give clearly suit tag name equal to suit name, test tag name equal to test name, groups run, but this groups only if there are groups you tell, otherwise leave it. And include and exclude, I'm giving that groups. Then classes tag, test tag after immediately classes tag will come. Class tag name equal to package dot class name. So in this class, which method you want to execute, which method you want to skip. So this is the one. Next, class tag below, methods tag you have to write. So include name test method, exclude name test2 method, and methods tag annotation you close it. Then close the class tag. This is the class tag related this everything. The next class name, so test.independent test, and close the classes tag, close the test tag, close the suit tag. So this is the tags you need to give if they ask you what are the testng.xml format means. Suit tag, test tag, classes tag. Inside class tag will be there. Each class you will mention with the class tag. Then close the classes tag first, then close the test tag, then finally close the suit tag. That's the order of your suit file tags. So what are the TestNG reports are there? So the importance of reporting is reports helps you to identify the status of test case, pass or fail or skip. So that you can identify the status of test case. Using reports, we can calculate the time taken by each test case that help to calculate return of investment. So how much time this test case is taking, you can calculate with these reports. It will give you the time. You can share automation reports with your team and with the clients, as well as to share the status of testing progress. That's the advantages of reports and importance of reports. And so there are 3 types of reports are there. First, so once you run your testng.test case, your testng test case, if you run, you will get a default folder automatically. Test output folder will generate in your project. Under test output folder, you can see default test.html. And second, another report is emailable-report.html. And third one, index.html. All 3 reports will be available for each test case, right? So that's the 3 reports you can see: emailable report, index.html report, and default test.html report. These are the reports you can find. So that's all about how to run parallel test cases, parallel classes and methods This is another interview question. How can you run your classes parallelly? How can you run your test cases parallelly? So you need to use parallel attribute. So if you want to run methods parallelly, suit tag name equal to suit name, and then parallel attribute equal to methods. Thread count 5. Maximum thread count is 5 only. 5 methods you can run parallelly, not more than that. And suit name is my suit. Parallel equal to test. Test tags will run parallelly. So if you give parallel equal to test tags, in yesterday I have shown you one suit file may contain more than one test tags, right? Test tag inside a classes tag inside class tag, like that test tag will end. Then another test tag you can start. So like that you can write multiple test tags. And this is the important. How can you run classes parallelly? Means you can mention parallel attribute equal to classes, so that you mentioned classes will run parallelly in that browser. Each class on one browser instance. One browser instance. So for example, you mention parallel equal to classes, and browser you mention Chrome. So for example, you have a classes tag inside 3 classes, class 1, class 2, class 3. For each class, one Chrome browser instance will open. The class 1 will execute on Chrome browser instance 1. Next, same Chrome browser instance 2, class 2 will execute, and class 3 will execute on the Chrome browser instance 3. All 3 will run parallelly. 3 instances will launch, and each browser instance, one class will execute. That's a parallel execution. Why do you need parallel execution? It reduces the execution time, basically. That's the main purpose of this parallel execution. So that's why people will prefer running parallel execution in our suits. That's a very important. So then you have interview questions also here. So I have given interview questions also here. Please go through the interview questions also one after the other. So how to set the preserve order? What is this preserve order? First understand. What is this preserve order? If you want your classes and methods to be run in an unpredictable order, then we should go for preserve-order attribute in testng.xml file. So in testng, by default, preserve-order attribute will be set to true. This means testng will run your tests in the order. So they are found in the XML file. So this is the one preserve order. You can give suit tag name equal to preserve order test runs. Test tag name equal to regression on preserve order. Preserve-order attribute equal to false. If you set, it will run in unpredictable order. So that's the preserve order purpose. So then all the classes will run. So the preserve order format. That's how to run a preserve order attribute. Like other attributes we have, right? Parallel attribute. So those attributes, preserve order also one of the important points. And TestNG assertions, you want to assert. So there are 2 types of assertions in the TestNG. Hard assertions, soft assertions. Hard assertions, what it will do, if the test case fails there and the entire program will terminate, that's a hard assertions. These are all hard assertions. Assert equals. So expected result, actual result. It compares expected and actual values. Both values it will compare. Both are same or not, it will compare by this assert equals method. And we have seen in the test in JUnit also. Assert true. You are expecting to be true, but this Boolean commands. So what are all the Webdriver Boolean commands? What are the Webdriver Boolean methods? Okay. Is displayed, is enabled, is selected. These are the Boolean methods. So these Boolean methods you can use here to get the true or false values, or some string methods you have to use to get the Boolean values here, like contains method, equals method. So this contains method mostly you will use, or is displayed, is enabled, is selected method you are going to use here. So even asserted true is overloaded here. So you have Boolean commands, you can use Webdriver Boolean commands. Then customized message also you can write. It's up to you. You are expecting the element state should be true, and whether it is giving it true or not, you check this method. If it gives true and this is already true and true, you will get a true. That means it will pass. If suppose this is returning false and this command will fail, that's a asserted true means. So what is soft assertions and hard assertions? So soft assertions will tell you all of the test cases will continue execution till the end, but the error will report for you in the logs. That's a soft assertion. So if one soft assertion fails also, your test case will continue till the end. But hard assertion is not like that. So hard assertion is simply assertion, these things. Hard assertions, what it will do? If hard assertion fails immediately, entire test case execution stops there. That's a hard assertion. Soft assertion, test doesn't stop running even if an assertion condition fails, but the test itself is marked as a failed test to indicate the right result. So at the end, it will mark as a failure, but all the code will execute for you. That's a soft assertions. So how to use these soft assertions? You create an object for soft asset class, new soft asset, and then you can call this object reference soft asset dot asset true false, soft asset dot asset true. So asset equals, so whatever you want, you can see multiple test methods inside. You can use this soft asset object and call asset true or asset equals method, and a last test method. So soft assertion, you have to call soft asset dot asset all. That what it will do, all the test methods assertions will be asserted at the end. Assert all, here it will assert, and finally the test cases which are failed with assertions will be marked as a failed. That's the soft assert and hard assert. So last one, how can you run failed test cases? When you run test cases, suppose you run 50 test cases. In out of 50, 40 test cases are passed, 10 test cases failed. Now I don't want to run again all the suite. I want to run only failed test case. That failed 10 test cases I want to run. How can you execute? This is the interview question. So in the test output folder, the XML file will create. So the XML file is called testng-fail.xml in the output directory. So this XML file contains the necessary information to rerun only the failed test case. So it will allowing you to quickly reproduce the failures without having to run the entire suite. And what will happen? Only that 10 test cases will be included in the suite file. Then those things we can execute. It's like this. So okay, this class, so these methods you need to include, and those methods only failed, those methods you can execute. That's how to run failed test cases. So this is how to solve no class def found error. So this is the solution I provided. So this dependency you need to provide in the Maven. That Maven comes, I will tell you. The interview questions, you can see that. Can you give priority as a 0? Yes, you can give. Can you give negative values as a priority? Yes, you can give. Can you give decimal values as priority? No, you cannot give. In TestNG class, if you don't give any priority for the test methods, then what will be the order of your test case execution? This is very important. In TestNG class, if you don't give any priority for the test methods, then what will be the order of your test case execution? You are not giving priority, then what will be the order? So based on the method alphabetical order, it will execute. That's the answer you have to give. We have 4 methods under TestNG class. 2 we set a priority, and other 2 we didn't set a priority. Then what is the order of test case execution? So you got the question? All these questions asked in the interviews. That's why we included here. 2 methods, 2 @test methods, you used priority keyword. @test priority equal to something you set, and two test methods you didn't set the priority. You didn't at all use the priority keyword. Then what is the order of execution? The first, which methods you haven't set the priority, those methods in the alphabetical order it will execute. Then priority set methods will execute in the order. That's our answer for this question. We have given the same priority for all the methods. Then what will be the order of test case execution? You are given same priority for all the test methods. Then what will be the order of execution? It will be alphabetical order. Again, which method alphabet first comes, that method will execute. Next question. See, in the priority, how many questions? 7 questions on the priority, 8 questions. Few methods we set priority and few methods are not set the priority. Then what is the order of execution? That we have seen, right? Same question repeated. Okay, this is the difference and this is the difference. And this question already came on the top. This is the duplicate, I think. Okay. Next, if you give same priority for both the methods, then which one will get executed first? Almost similar question, but alphabetical order it will execute. We have multiple test methods. We have given a priority as 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fourth method we set depends on method on the third one. Now, what is the sequence of execution? This is the question asked. Say 9 questions in the priority only. So 1, 2, 3, 4. First 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 will execute, and you set a depends on method on third one. Now, what is the fourth method? We set a depends on method on the third one. So depends on methods, fourth method, set depends on method, third one. So that means first 1, 2, 3 will execute, then 4 will execute. Yes, you said depends on 4. First third will execute, then 4 will execute. Like that. Or if you set on the 4, that's order. If you set on the third, first 4 will execute, then third. So that maybe this is the tricky question. So you set on the 3. So @test depends on method 4, test 4. Now what will happen? First test 4 will execute, then test 3 will execute. That's the this question meaning for them. So these are all the questions. What is the purpose of listeners? Why do you need listeners? Can you list out the listeners? What are listeners? So these questions they will ask. Just check listeners are, we have iReporter listener, iHookable, iTestSuite listener. So these are the listeners. Let me show you that. Go to testng.org and we have so many listeners. Listeners will listen to your actions. That's a listeners concept. Listeners mainly used for getting the reports. So it will fetch the your test case status. It will fetch the test case status. These are the TestNG listeners. So what is this TestNG advantage, listeners advantage? These are all several interfaces that allow you to modify TestNG's behavior. You can modify the TestNG's behavior. So annotation transformer, annotation transformer 2, iHookable, invoked method listener, method interceptor, iReporter, suite listener, test listener. So this is the all the listeners. I think we are using test listener, suite listener, iReporter. These are the listeners we are using. So we are implementing in our framework. I'll show you that. These are listeners. Once you have a listeners, you have to write listeners tag in the suite tag below, then mention your listener name. All these listeners you have to implement because these are interfaces. Interfaces you have to implement in some other class. So in our class, we are going to implement them. So that I'll show you in our next framework. I'll show you these things. Because here the interview questions has come, just I'm telling that. And that's all about interview questions and TestNG. Tomorrow we'll start the